Mahoney is a great American and Norwood resident, has graciously offered to perform taps for us today. So ladies and gentlemen, if you would face the flag, and John Mahoney, would you honor us with taps? Present. Hum. Order, hum. Ladies and gentlemen, John Mahoney. Thank you so very much, John. We appreciate that. You are dismissed with our thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, please join with me in a minute of silence to remember the fallen, the prisoners of war, the missing in action, and honor those who have served and are serving this great nation's armed services. We will have 1 full minute of silence. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce the woman who did it all and put this whole program together last year and this year from Ecolab, Andrea Reed. Please, Andrea Reed.
Good afternoon. For those who do not know me, my name is Andrea Reed. Last year was my first year coordinating Wreaths Across America in Norwood. I had heard about this amazing event from grassroots movements at my job at Ecolab. The closest sites, however, were a significant drive away. And since I grew up in Norwood, married a townie, co-own the Sugar Cone in South Norwood, and work at Ecolab in Norwood, I asked how I could participate in Norwood. I was overwhelmed by the support from Mark Ryan, from the DPW, the Director of Veteran Services, Teddy Mulvihill, and the Selectmen, who unanimously voted yes when we asked if we could host here. This year, George Curtis Jr., whose father lays right here, and was recognized last year as the most highly decorated veteran in this cemetery, offered to help with the social media aspect too. And in doing so, I'm proud to say that this year our donations more than doubled. Ecolab donated 45 wreaths themselves. Grace Baptist Church donated 35 wreaths through Dominic, and we received generous donations from the townspeople and folks like you, and we ended up with 195 wreaths this year. Another way to donate is time, and I thank you for being here today. I got a lot of calls about the weather, and I appreciate you guys coming out here and donating your time to honor the men and women who serve to preserve our freedoms. I was talking to my brother, Adam Flaherty, who transitioned to the reserves last month. He's a major in the Air Force, and he was a pilot for the B-1 supersonic bomber. He also was a trainer for the T-6 and T-37, and he stated it was an honor to serve the military for 15 years. And as we talked, he wanted to describe what he meant. We discussed the impact it had on his family, because it takes a full family effort to make deployments successful. Adam noted that his wife, Allison, was able to take care of the kids, the house, the bills, and all other duties so he didn't have to worry about that when he was away. He stated, "She deserves as much credit as I do for going on deployment." We discussed his 4 deployments to the Middle East. He was stationed in many different states, and he trained thousands of students how to fly individually, in formation, and off instruments, which is instrument flight. What did I take away from our talk? I could hear how much he loved flying the B-1 supersonic bomber, especially when he talked about the mock air war that he did in Nevada for training. His pride rang through, and his excitement was contagious. I felt how proud he was to serve, and he stated, "When you're in the military, you may not feel or understand how important your service is. Being able to defend the country and protect the people back home is a great responsibility, and it's a great honor." We talked about the value of freedom and how we have freedoms that can't be understated. We are protected by our Constitution, and there are many people all over the world who come to America because of those freedoms. And he said it is a great honor to fight for those freedoms as a military member, to make sure that the people in America are safe and they can go to bed every night without worry. We talked about the need for a strong military so that we can preserve those freedoms in the Constitution. And throughout our entire conversation, Adam repeated how it was an honor to serve, and yet he was so humble. And that's a recurrent theme I find with many veterans that I talk to. In thinking of freedoms and what that truly means as a woman, I'm going to highlight a story that I talked with my sorority sister, Rhonda Brazel, 2 nights ago. And she's a veteran of the Persian Gulf War in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. She was a Sergeant E5 in the Army and served for 8 years. While stationed in Saudi Arabia, she saw women who were not allowed to drive and could only work if their owners gave them permission. This could be a husband, a father, a brother. These women were uneducated, and many establishments wouldn't allow them to enter. Or if they did, the women would have to eat in the back room. Rhonda remembers visiting an ice cream parlor, which I own, and I couldn't even imagine when she said that there was a sign on the door that said women were not allowed to sit. If a woman needed life-saving surgery, she would die. And the reason is it's not permitted for a male surgeon to see her body. Rhonda is proud to have served and stated she will never take her personal freedoms and liberty for granted after what she witnessed with her own 2 eyes in the Middle East. At this memorial site and memorial sites across America, we gather to remember that we live in a free society, made up of many people, many races, from many walks of life. The freedoms we enjoy today have not come without a price. The freedoms we enjoy today, where we can worship freely, we can raise our children and travel wherever we want to go without permission, vote for government office, and we have a right to succeed and fail with whatever we decide to pursue. The United States of America was founded on the ideals of freedom, justice, and equality. Our nation stands as a shining beacon of liberty and freedom to the world, and we're here today to remember those who gave their lives to keep us free. Quoting our 40th president, Ronald Reagan, freedom is never more than 1 generation away from extinction. We don't pass it to our children from our bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on to them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like to be in the United States where men were free. Today we show a united front of national unity across the United States of America as we remember the fallen, honor those who serve, and teach our children the value of freedom. We also would like to remember and honor the United States servicemen from all branches of service whose last known status was either prisoner of war or missing in action. These individuals have never returned to their families and homes. We shall not forget you. We actually have a family here today that Teddy is going to acknowledge who did find their missing relative and brought him home so he could rest in peace. I'm going to challenge each and every one of you to say thank you when you see a veteran or an active duty member of the armed services. We owe them our way of life. And in talking about how we're educating children, I'm going to ask Zach to come up. And Zach was here last year as part of the ceremony, our first ceremony, right? And I'm just going to ask him a couple questions to show you the impact that we have on our children who come and visit. So, you came last year.
Yep.
What did you come here for?
My grandfather, because he was in the Vietnam War and he served in the Air Force.
And how did it feel to be a part of this?
It felt good because, I knew I was, helping my grandfather and stuff because he was in the Vietnam War, and it just felt good.
Absolutely. And I'm sure he's very, very proud of you. He's here today. And is there anything that you would like to share with everyone that's here this year about this experience and what it means to be here?
Well,
How do you feel?
yeah, I'm happy to be here because he served, in the Vietnam War, and I'm proud of it, and it's like good to give back to the veterans because they served and they helped our country.
Well, thank you very much. And Zach's an example of the next generation who comes here and participates and gives back as his family has. And we appreciate him coming back a second year. Last year he had to walk up the hill to get here, which if anyone's ever done, that's a lot. And this year he didn't walk, but that's okay. Thank you, Zach. The next speaker is Tom and his son. He's going to support him, make sure that he doesn't be here alone.
Hi, my name's Tom. This is Talon, my son. He's like my security blanket, or vice versa. I don't know which one. But I just want to first say thank you all for coming. It's an unbelievable honor to be here with all of you as we pay our respects to those who have served us so valiantly. It's an incredible experience for me to have my family here with me as well. I'll start off by saying, when Andrea called me a couple weeks ago and asked me to speak, I was a little perplexed because I'm not a veteran. My wife's not a veteran. I have an automatic disqualifier. I've never been able to serve, and so I was a little confused at first. But then she reminded me of a story that I had recently told her about my family, and how unique it was for me growing up. I actually have 4 grandfathers, 2 of whom they all served in World War II, and 2 of whom succumbed to it immediately, and 2 of whom that I knew very well were my step-grandfathers. One, William Griswold, was a merchant marine and was actually sunk in the Atlantic, torpedoed many times, and he is buried in Arlington National Cemetery. And my mother's stepfather, who was the only grandfather I knew on that side, his name was Leo Newmark, and we called him Pop. And he was actually a navigator on a B-17. You guys might know that. The Flying Fortress, it was the plane in Memphis Belle, the movie. And he spent his entire military career in the Pacific campaign. And he was shot down 3 times. He crash landed 5 times. I think 3 of those were those. So I don't know what crash landing means to a veteran and of that nature, whether it means landing with one wheel or coming in without your tail, but he survived them all. And one time was even captured by the enemy, and he said only for a cup of coffee. He never defined it further than that. I don't know if that was 10 days or an hour, but he spent a cup of coffee with under the care of the enemy. And I tell that story because both of those gentlemen are buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and I'm of the belief today, I know we have a team up there today, and I'm of the belief that somebody will be placing a wreath at their graves as well. So I just want to tell you the stories of 2 gentlemen today who may be getting a wreath placed at their gravestone. I'm certainly going to be thinking of them as me and my son place gravestones today.
Thank you, Tom. And our last speaker before our closing remarks is Teddy Mulvihill. He's the Director of Veteran Services for the town of Norwood.
Thank you, Andrea. I'd like to preface my remarks, first of all, by thanking you all for your attendance today. It means a great deal. Obviously, we're participating in a national program, so all across America, groups just like you are honoring those who have earned our respect and have earned our recognition and earned our love. And also, too, it's important to remember we'll be placing wreaths on graves today of veterans who don't have any family left. And so it's important we remember them, remember them as well. I'd also like to preface my remarks by thanking several people who's without their assistance, an event like this couldn't happen. First of all, Ecolab and Andrea Reed, obviously took the point on this program. This is our 2nd annual, and we will continue this program every year from now on. John Mahoney, as you heard, played taps for us. Cemetery Superintendent and Deputy Superintendent Paul Rinaldi and Charlie Walsh are over there. They'll be helping us distribute the wreaths. And Norwood's own Colonial Pipers, a great group of young men and women who are extremely talented. And there's nothing like the sound of bagpipes on a day such as this. As Andrea mentioned, I'm going to tell you a story about the Wilson family and their uncle. We are joined today by Tom McQuaid, his wife Susan Wilson McQuaid, and Jack McQuaid. Jack and Susan are the niece and nephew of U.S. Army Staff Sergeant John J. Farrell, Jr. John was killed at the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest, a lesser-known battle, but nonetheless is equally as horrific as the Battle of the Bulge, and was presumed killed. He was missing in action for many, many years, and eventually was declared killed in action. So let's fast forward 60-plus years. In Germany, to this day, you cannot put a shovel in the ground for construction purposes without having an explosive ordnance specialist on the job site. And because of, obviously, unexploded ordnance buried in the ground from World War II. So this worker was digging and struck something and uncovered it, and it was a boot, a United States Army combat boot. Jack Wilson read about this story, and growing up as a kid, he always knew that his Uncle Jack was missing in action from World War II. And he had an epiphany. He said, "That's my uncle's boot. That's him." So Jack took it upon himself and made it his mission to identify the remains that they found on that job site in Germany. And through sheer dogged determination and willpower, he came to find out that it actually was, in fact, his uncle, proven by DNA testing. So we returned Staff Sergeant Farrell to Logan Airport with full military honors, and he was interred right over there behind the chapel, initially. Now, Susan and Jack's mother was Jack's sister, and he had another sister, Rosemary Farrell, who just recently passed away a few weeks back. And she is interred down back in the new section down there. So what they did was, it was her wish that she be buried, her casket be placed on top of Staff Sergeant Farrell's casket so he could never leave her again, which I thought was just the most amazing sentiment. She's got him, and he's not going anywhere. And so they did that. The cemetery crew disinterred the remains with respect and buried them down back, and Rosemary, his little sister, was buried on top of him. So I want to thank the Wilson family for their special attendance today. It just shows you love and respect are two of the strongest emotions and characteristics that we can display as a people. And the respect that we have for Staff Sergeant Farrell and the other veterans, men and women, who lie in this hallowed ground at the cemetery, are deserving of such. So we want to thank you all so very, very kindly for your attendance today. And as I said, this will be an annual event. We hope you will join us next time. So thank you all very much.
So in closing, the wreaths before you are to represent our commitment as United States to remember the fallen. We also want these remembrance wreaths to symbolize our honor to those who served and are serving in the armed forces of our great nation, and to their families who endure the sacrifices every day on their behalf. To our children, we want you to understand the freedoms that you enjoy today have not been free, but have come with a cost. And someday, you may have to pay that yourself. As a nation standing together, we can defeat terrorism, hatred, and injustice. Thank you to our veterans, because we have the freedoms today to do just that. Thank you for volunteering today to help us lay the wreaths and helping honor our veterans. Please remember, when you place a wreath on a headstone, all I ask is you say their name out loud and pause for a moment to respect them for protecting our freedoms and our way of life. Thank you for coming here. The wreaths are actually straight to your right, and we appreciate you helping out and coming out and volunteering your time today. Thank you for joining us.